Hey everyone, if you are into Scooby Doo or Josie and the Pussycats or any of those kind of Saturday morning cartoons where you had teen sleuths solving mysteries and you thought that'd be a great game for Savage Worlds, well, there's a setting called Sleuth Squad, which might be just right for you. Savage Worlds, one of the best games today. Hey everyone, it's Carl with Tabletop Tango. Look at the bubbles, do the stuff. We'd love your support. We'd love your subscription. If you subscribe now, that helps me get to a milestone so I can do a celebratory live stream, which I'm looking forward to. So I really would like those. Again, support goes to the channel, buy Savage World stuff because, don't have infinite funds to buy Savage World stuff, but we still would like to buy infinite Savage World stuff. So anyway, so what am I talking about today? I'm talking about a setting that's in Swag on the Savage Worlds Adventure Guild on Drive-Thru RPG called Sleuth Squad, which has that Scooby Doo feel. It's $10, not a bad deal for a setting. It's by Jacob Oshaleski and does a good job on this book. It's pretty cool. I think you probably will like it. As far as the setting goes, it's a great read. So let's talk a little bit about the aesthetic. The book very much is driven by that Saturday morning cartoon vibe. There's cartoons throughout it. The cartoon characters have bubbles above their head, telling you a little bit of information about the different areas as you're reading through the book. The only thing I complain a little bit about is that it's got large margins, and you probably could fit a little bit more text on each page because the margins are very large, but that's where the cartoon characters are, so it kind of works out. I guess if you were going to do a print on demand, it's about 200 plus pages, I think 212 pages, so it's a big book. That might be a big deal, but as a PDF, I think it works out super well. Very nice book. I enjoyed reading it. So let's start off with the first part of it is character concepts. And I should probably say now, this is an overview. We're going to talk about kind of what's in the book. It's not a review. It's really just kind of what you'll find in the book, kind of the cool things I think are there. So let's get back into it. So character concepts. So it talks a lot about what kind of characters are in this setting or the kinds of characters you play. The default concept is that you're a gang of sleuths with a mascot. So that's the cool part, is the mascot, and I'll talk more about that. So obviously, again, that inspiration from Scooby Doo, it's kind of a cool mechanism to have the mascots in there. And again, I'll talk about that. Or another item is you're a traveling band that has a mascot. You notice it's always has a mascot, or you're a detective agency with a mascot. So it's all kind of cool. Then they talk about the archetypes. They give some example of the sort of people that might be part of this sleuthing gang. For example, artists, the big guy or gal, the tough one, the cosmopolitan, the exchange student, a gadgeteer, a lovable coward, again, leaning into it. And if you are in a band, this is also a section where you're going to pick your band's genre, and it lists a whole bunch of different genres that your band might be part of or take advantage of, and so that's kind of cool. Then getting into character creation, it goes through building a sleuth kit out, what it looks like. It doesn't give a ton of additional information. It's really geared towards, Suede and how you would build a character. But it talks about having a rationale to discuss with your GM, a rationale about why your kid has higher skill levels than maybe you might expect from, someone who's just a kid. Right. And then there's certain edges like liquid courage that are, best to avoid, probably shouldn't do it. Now, the differences during character creation is that the group gets a mascot and what they call an gang edge. So your sleuthing gang has an edge that goes kind of throughout. It's like overall. And I'll talk about that in just a second. But as far as the character itself creation, there's 18 new hindrances, things like easily distracted, which is a minor or a major, and this is where there's things they simply can't resist, like looking in the mirror, going through books, stuff like that. hungry for, which is a minor or a major, which is they've got an appetite for something. They always have to have it, and they'll go out of their way to do it to cause mayhem while they're doing it. So stuff like that. 18 new hindrances, all very much flavorful for the genre, as you would expect. For edges, there's 15 edges, new edges. And again, all about the flavor of being a kid sleuth. Some examples are pathetic whimper. You automatically support allies if you fail a fear roll. There's puppy eyes. Free retest when convincing the authorities of you're innocent. Cheerleader, runaway, rocker person. Rocker person is +2 to performance attempts with a chosen instrument. So very much along the lines of what you'd expect from this kind of genre. Now let's talk about gang edges. Gang edges are something that you get that your squad has that distinguishes it as far as the traits of the squad. So some example gang edges are athletes. So this is where your gang is a group of athletes and they're all athletic. So you get a free retest on agility-based skills. Another might be glamour mavens, where each one dresses grants a persuasion retest because that's the kind of gang you are. Party crashers, nerds, geeks. So a lot of different things that kind of define the gang, and it's an edge that affects mechanically how the gang works based on this gang edge. So it's a cool concept that, a lot of settings have things like your hideout or whatever, which can have properties to it, can add benefits to the player, like in Superpowers Companion or that sort of thing. So this is an interesting way of kind of making your gang a little unique and providing some mechanical advantage. The gear, very much suede base. The sleuths start with less money, but they get kind of a basic package. They get clothes, backpack, a bike, scooter, a skateboard, bus pass, snacks, cell phone, and then a place to keep their stuff, like their notes and whatever. So they might have a hideout. They might just have their bedroom at home, what have you. And then it lists of some detective stuff that might be useful, part of the game. And then it talks about what they call sleuthmobiles, so the different vehicles that might make sense for a gang of sleuths traveling the countryside, solving mysteries. Now, the big thing that's part of this setting is mascots. And so that's very tried, linked. And so I'll read real quick about mascots. A mascot is an unusual creature that accompanies sleuths on their amazing adventures. The cartoon sidekick that tags along typical teens. Despite all the supernatural shenanigans around it, the mascot is usually accepted at face value. And it offers comic relief, inspiration, and keeps the gang together. So it's really something. It's an NPC, an extra, whatever that kind of tags along with the party. It has its own skills, capabilities, and then the players would play it in certain situations. So creating it, it goes into kind of the mascots, types of mascots. So there's like cartoon animals, might be supernatural creatures like ghosts or goblins, might be something homemade like a robot, or something what they call almost human, which is like aliens or a recently unfrozen caveman, that sort of thing. And so going through creating, it's very much like typical character creation in a lot of senses. It starts with a basic template that you start with. And then what's kind of cool is then once you get everything sort of worked out and defined, you go around the table once with all the players, and each player gets to level up the mascot as it goes around. And that could be an edge, again, increase attributes, increase ability scores, your normal level up stuff. And then when it gets to the game master gets to add a hindrance based on, it could be linked to a gang edge or whatever, but it kind of rounds it out. It gives the players sort of that ability to tailor based on what they're thinking, what this mascot is all about. And then it also gives some like input as to how you might want to play a mascot. So if it's a scene where all the sleuths are present, the mascot can hang out in the background, maybe occasionally interject, not do a lot. But if But if the sleuths are in a scene and not all the players are there, one of the players can take over the mascot and kind of run it. And a mascot's got its own bennies, and it has a benny per player playing. And if it's got some special ability like teleport, it could be in any scene at any time, and really have kind of a fun. It's all about having wacky, making them wacky, have weird things, cause problems, make things interesting for the party. So mascot's a very big part of this setting, and it's definitely looks like it's going to be it'd be a lot of fun to be able to jump in and play that. Now I kind of have, it's not part of the setting, but I was in a Fallout game where I came in as kind of an NPC to help out the game master, and I played one of the robots, one of those Mr. Fix-It robots in Fallout, and I had a quirk and I had strange things, and it was a lot of fun just kind of interjecting and causing the party issues. And so I could see the mascot in this setting being very similar to that. So, and then the mascots has specific edges and hindrances that can be added as well. Things like dazzling smile that tests the enemy using persuasion, exit stage right, runs away without a fear roll, natural weapons, that sort of thing. Hindrances, things like bad grip, fleas, not going there where you refuse to go certain places, and that can cause a lot of tension or what have you. And then so after all character creation, got mascot, got everything pulled together. Now we talk some of the setting rules that the game has. There's quite a few of them. I'll highlight a couple. First one is what the author calls costumes get their own stats. So as we know in kind of that genre, right, the bad guy is actually, a human in a suit who's trying to pretend to be a monster, and that's not, you don't have to play it that way, but, in Scooby Doo, that was always the situation, right? And this setting says the suit itself has its own statistics. So if you have somebody who's playing a werewolf, when they're the werewolf, they've got werewolf stats, and they act like a werewolf. They got the capability, the strength, what have you, versus their human counterpart that's out of the suit. So that's kind of an interesting, so the monster and the villain get different stats based on whether they're in the suit or not. And that's part of it, is to keep the players from not knowing what the villain capabilities are, and quickly understanding who the villain is, because if it's the old man Withers and he's playing the werewolf, but he's still the old man Withers, well, that might give it away. They also have commercial breaks, which is downtime things. Have gigs, which are extended rules for swaying the audience in concerts and using them. The band, so again, it leans heavily into the band, traveling band. There's 11 pages of information in the setting rules about creating a band, how to run a band. Really too much to discuss, but if you really like that flavor, you're going to have a lot of content here to work with. They talk about the weird chases, which is chase rules basically out of Suede, but on a certain, if you get a heart for an action card, you're drawing again, and there could be weird stuff like, the Hall of Doors, in Scooby Doo, where they're going back and forth through doors, or the bad guy turns it around on you and causes some havoc in that regard. There's also a special guest appearance, which is you can make an NPC be a famous person, just like, again, Scooby Doo used to have all the time. So, and then the author describes kind of combat. Combat is really not designed to be deadly. Nobody really ever dies. It's just not that style. And we know, like in the Saturday morning cartoons, people get and fall into traps. People, get kind of taken out of their ability to do something or whatever, but they're never really hurt or die. And so that's something that the author suggests not doing. The last setting rule is trap building, and it goes through what it means to build a trap. And there's like 4 things that the author talks about. Bait, you need to understand what the monster wants. So that's part of the adventure, is figuring out what they're after so that you can, lure them in. The trigger, the condition that sets off the trap, what's going to happen, like, again, a pit, you step on it, it's going to fall, you're going to fall in. the mechanism, how the trap works. So the book mentions maybe using the GM doing a secret repair roll to determine whether it's going to work or not. And then when it comes time for the trap to happen, if the was a failure, then the trap kind of works, but there's some complications. If it was a critical failure, then it doesn't work, or something seriously bad happens. I'm a roll in the open kind of person, so I'm not a big fan of secret rolls personally. So I guess if you got a problem with players metagaming and watching you roll, or I'd rather have one of the players do a repair roll and then just role play it out, or what have you. I don't know. Since I haven't played Descending, I'm not sure how that will work out, but I'm generally a roll in the open kind of person. And then finally, disguise is how the trap is hidden, what makes it so you can't see it, which is would be kind of cool, right? So that's where a lot of those TV shows, the good guys get in the trap because they didn't notice it. So pretty cool, kind of setting up that stage for trap building, which is really part of that genre. Then there's a section on game mastering. It talks about sleuthing, detective work, how to use clues that the author suggests. One of the things they talk about is Schrodinger's suspect, which is really that thing that we see in kind of mystery games, where if the players have a very compelling reason why who's the bad guy, it's like, oh, it's so-and-so pulled the mask off, and instead of going, oh no, you're wrong, it's not that person, it's like, yeah, it was, because you had a good reason why that person was the bad guy. And so like the quantum ogre, it ends up being kind of what they discovered and figured out, and going from there. So next, so there's, like, after the Game Master section, it has an example adventure. An adventure summary says, with Halloween coming up, the Sleuth Squad has some free time to explore and solve mysteries. The new Monster Museum has opened in the nearby town of Thicket Harbor, and there are rumors of strange things happening there. The Sleuth Squad can take a ferry to Thicket Harbor, they can't get away, Thicket Harbor, and investigate. So, nice adventure, lots of stuff. I'm not going to talk about what's in it, but it gives you that flavor. It definitely gives you that ability to play out sleuthing with monsters and creatures and stuff like that. After that, then there's a section called Adventure Description and Ideas. And this basically is a set of locations where the Sleuth Squad might go to, and it provides sort of information on that location, things interesting about it. So it gives some flavor that you can take advantage of. If you're running a game where the folks are moving from city to city, you can take advantage of that. So it's interesting in the sense that it sets up cities and what's interesting about them with respect to this setting. Then the kind of the last adventure-y kind of thing is called Squad versus Nightmares section. And this is what the author calls kind of a meta setting. It sets up a world where monsters can actually exist. So obviously in Scooby Doo, there's really no monsters. It's always people in a suit. But this sets up while monsters can really exist. Again, I'm not going to get too much into it. But it does define NPCs, interesting locations, some otherworldly locations. But I don't want to spoil it for any players who might be playing, and make it harder for GMs to sort of set up the setting. But it allows you to take, so it's kind of obvious based on the television that this all comes from, kind of how to run those adventures, but it lets you take this into more serious, I guess I'd call it a more serious angle, with monsters being real and that sort of thing. And then last, obviously, there's a bestiary called Enemies and Creatures. The author breaks it up into different monster types. So there's aliens, there's elementals, there's robots, fiends, ghosts, undead, and mythical monsters. And so breaks them up. Oh, and then there's humanoids, sorry. And breaks them up and kind of categorizes all the different creatures into these different subsets of this subsets of, like ghosts and robots and that sort of thing. So it's got a decent number of things in it, so definitely useful for play. I didn't go and read each monster in detail to see whether they would be cool to use in other settings or, the balance or anything like that. But there's definitely a number to choose from. And so that's great. So that is Sleuth Squad. Pretty cool book. Only $10. Come on. Savage Worlds Adventure Guild, $10, not a bad deal. Has really kind of adds that flavor with the mascot, with the, all the different things with, for example, the gang edges. And if you want to be a musical party going around solving mysteries, it's got a lot of information on genres, on how to run a band. So you really can, lean heavily into that and have a good time with that. So again, I'm Carl with Tabletop Tango. Thanks again for watching. Look at the bubbles, do the stuff. Would love some subscriptions so I can do a celebratory live stream, and that would be fun. So thanks again. We'll talk to you later. One of the